1. What is Azure Active Directory? Azure Active Directory is Microsoft's cloud-based identity and access management (IAM) service. It helps employees access internal and external resources securely using a single identity. It enables authentication, authorization, SSO, MFA, and device management for SaaS applications, Microsoft 365, Azure resources, and third-party services. 2. What is Microsoft Entra ID, and how is it related to Azure AD? Microsoft Entra ID is the new name for Azure Active Directory. The renaming was part of a branding effort to bring identity products under the Entra family, which includes Entra ID, Azure AD, Entra Permissions Management, and Entra Verified ID. Functionally, Entra ID is the same as Azure AD but with a broader security vision. 3. What is the role of Identity and Access Management, IAM, in Azure? IAM in Azure controls who can access resources, what they can do, and what areas they can access. It ensures users authenticate properly and are authorized for specific tasks. Azure AD, Entra ID, is the core IAM system that supports Identity Federation, RBAC, MFA, and SSO across the Azure ecosystem. 4. What are the key differences between Azure AD Free, P1, and P2 licenses? Free, Basic Identity Services, SSO for up to 10 apps, user and group management. P1, adds conditional access, dynamic groups, and hybrid identity. P2, adds identity protection, risk-based conditional access, and privileged identity management, PIM. Each tier unlocks more security and automation features. 5. What is multi-factor authentication, MFA, in Azure AD? MFA is a security method that requires users to provide two or more verification methods. In Azure AD, users typically provide a password plus a second factor like a mobile notification or OTP. MFA reduces the risk of compromised credentials and is available in all plans, some advanced policies in P1, P2. 6. How does single sign-on, SSO, work in Azure AD? SSO in Azure AD allows users to sign in once and access multiple applications without needing to authenticate again. It works across Microsoft 365, SaaS apps, and on-prem systems. Azure AD handles the token exchange and identity federation securely behind the scenes, improving productivity and security. 7. How can we add a custom domain to Azure AD? To add a custom domain, 1. Go to Azure AD Custom Domain Names. 2. Click Add Custom Domain, enter your domain name, example contoso.com. 3. Verify ownership by updating DNS-TXT records in your domain provider. Once verified, the domain can be used for user UPNs, example user@contoso.com. 8. What is conditional access in Azure AD? Conditional access is a policy-based control in P1, P2 plans that allows or blocks access to applications based on conditions like location, device compliance, or risk level. For example, users may be forced to use MFA if logging in from an untested network. It enhances adaptive security. 9. How do we create users in Azure AD? You can create users from Azure Portal, Azure AD, Users, New User. PowerShell, using new Azure Reducer or new M user. You specify details like username, domain, password, and role. You can also assign licenses during creation to enable M365 or Entra features. 10. How do we set up groups in Azure AD and why are they used? Groups are created to manage user access and policies collectively. Steps. 1. Go to Azure AD, Groups, New Group. 2. Choose Security or Microsoft 365 Group. 3. Add members and assign roles or access. Groups simplify permissions management for apps, policies, and resources. 11. What is the difference between security groups and Microsoft 365 groups? Security groups control access to Azure resources, VMs, and app permissions. Microsoft 365 groups provide collaboration features like shared Outlook inbox, calendar, and SharePoint. Both can be used to assign policies, but M365 groups come with productivity tool integration. 12. What is Privileged Identity Management, PIM? PIM, available in P2, allows you to manage, control, and monitor access to important Azure resources. It enables just-in-time, JIT, access, approval workflows, and auditing for users with elevated permissions like global administrator or subscription owner roles, reducing the attack surface. 13. How do users reset passwords in Azure AD? Azure AD supports self-service password reset, SSPR. Users can reset passwords by verifying their identity using email, phone, or security questions. Admins enable SSPR via Azure AD password reset. It's available for cloud-only and hybrid users based on licensing. 14. What are application registrations in Azure AD? Application registration allows developers to integrate apps with Azure AD. It creates a service principal and defines API permissions, redirect, and secrets. Apps can authenticate using OAuth 2 and OpenID Connect protocols, enabling SSO and secure API access. 15. How do hybrid identities work with Azure AD? Hybrid identities integrate on-premises AD with Azure AD using Azure AD Connect. It supports password hash sync, pass-through authentication, federation with apps. This allows users to use the same credentials on-prem and in the cloud with seamless SSO experiences. 16. What is role-based access control, RBAC, in Azure? RBAC assigns permissions to users, groups, or service principals based on roles. Azure AD handles identity, while RBAC handles what resources users can manage, like VMs or storage. Common roles include reader, contributor, and owner, and they can be assigned at different scope levels. 17. What is identity protection in Azure AD? Identity protection, in P2 license, uses machine learning to detect risks like impossible travel, leaked credentials, or atypical sign-ins. It flags risky user sessions and applies automatic conditional access policies to block or force MFA. It is crucial for threat detection and response.
18. How to assign licenses to users in Azure AD. You can assign licenses from Azure AD User Select User Licenses. Azure AD Groups assign licenses, bulk. You need to ensure the tenant has available licenses, M365, enter ID P1/P2. Automation is also possible via PowerShell or Azure AD Group-based licensing. 19. What tools are used to manage Azure AD? Azure Portal, Microsoft Graph API, Azure PowerShell AZ module, Azure CLI. Microsoft Entra Admin Center each offers unique capabilities for user/group management, reporting, policy setup, and automation. 20. How does Azure AD integrate with third-party SaaS apps? Azure AD supports thousands of SaaS apps through its gallery. You can configure SSO using SAML, OAuth, or OpenID Connect. Go to Enterprise Applications New Application, select the app, configure SSO, assign users/groups, and apply conditional access as needed for secure login.